I feel there's also times in between. Like there is a life, and then there's many, it's like one life, and then there's many tiny little options of this life. Okay, maybe that's getting too far. Like kind of like maybe like parallel realities, but they're all realities. Anyway, but this is like times of like I had other lifetimes, and then you can sit there and reflect on all the steps that you have taken and how you have changed in your karma and in your understanding of yourself. And this is also like an illustration of what I learned about. I keep using the word karma because I don't know any other word that I can use. And I learned that it's not really something like, I think a lot of people already moved away from the concept of that it being a crime and punishment system or like a debit and credit system, payment and payback. But for me, it's been know yourself system.
Welcome, Olga. Thank you for joining us again today on the Life, Death, and Beyond podcast.
Hi, Laura, and it's wonderful to be back. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. For those watching this episode, you can also check out Olga's near-death experience, and that'll be linked at the back end of the video and in the description, so you can check that out. Today, we're going to kind of go in just a little bit of a different direction. So, Olga, can you take us through that spiritual experience and then kind of let us know what you got from that experience?
Okay, so this is a childhood memory of a past life that I don't know how or why, but I just know that it happened when I was 2 years old. At that time, I didn't really know what birthdays are, but I remember waking up in my bed, in my baby bed, and just suddenly waking up, um, not as a baby, but I woke up as an adult, and I just knew that. It's like there was an adult in my baby's body, and it was me. And my baby bed used to be in the living room of my old house where I grew up. And at that time, my parents were in the kitchen, not in the room, but they were cooking something and laughing and joking and talking. And I suddenly woke up as if I have been sleeping always or something like that. And I felt almost like a foreigner in my house, in my bed. But also I knew what's going on. Like, oh yeah, I am in the body of this baby. And but at the same time, I was, I don't know how it's possible, but at the same time, suddenly I was in another place. And it's hard to explain because the time is very weird. So I was in two places at the same time, kind of. Uh, I was in a field and I knew who I was over there. I was this warrior man who was dying on the battlefield. And I remember the grass very, very in detail, that it was yellow and it was drying, the time of the year when there was so much sun and when the grass dries. So I remember that we had a battle and the battle was actually finished. But what happened was that I was lured away, kind of in a tricky way. Somehow, one person, there was, it was like it was a planned thing that the other side did. I was somehow tricked into going off the battlefield because the battle was finished. And so I was lured away somehow from the main people of my battle into this other place with the field. And there was a forest. And then they ambushed me. Like a bunch of people came from the trees and they killed me separately after the battle. Um, and I remember laying down on a like a low rock formation, and they ran away on horses. And in a weird way, I was proud of my death because I realized that they really recognized that I was a good and strong warrior. So I had to be separately taken away, separately tricked into walking away so that they could ambush me and kill me so that in the next battle I wouldn't participate in the next battle because I was really proud of myself that I'm so strong and I do a lot for the battle and then I had to have like a separate mission just to kill me because they also thought that I was strong. So in some way I was kind of really proud of myself, but there was another side which was um I I had a really big thing about being strong and being powerful. So um I had this wife and son living in what you would today call a city, but it wasn't looking like a city. It was whatever, I don't know, a town. And they were living, I remember, on the second floor because I was out a lot. So I kept them on the second floor of a building, which I thought was really fantastic living quarters because I made a lot of money by being a warrior. So I could pay their way. I could give them a place to live that where they didn't have a need for anything. And when I was dying, I had this big blow to my pride and confidence that I'm so strong because I was so sure that I like wouldn't ever die or something like that because I was so confident in myself. And I was true so far because by then I wasn't dead. All those days that I was confident, it's like true. Why? Because I'm not dead. But also, as I realized that I was dying, I realized just how much I really left my wife and son alone without anybody and anything to provide for them. I didn't really care so much that I died because I knew that that was my life, that it's a fighter's life. It's okay. And I was actually proud of how it happened because somebody had to take me away. But I had this really huge kind of almost like breaking of my heart. And I realized that my wife may have to become like a prostitute or something, and my son may have to be degraded and begging for food. And that was breaking my heart absolutely crazy. And I was begging my soul, which was, I felt it was somewhere, you can't see it, but it's somewhere there, like above me. It was like a flow of energy, and there was like a light over there. And I was begging my soul, I was begging like life, I was begging everything to not let me die on this battlefield, to let me survive because I realized that I shouldn't have led this life. I felt that I made a huge mistake, and the mistake that I was making was um, just the whole lifestyle. Um, the, so so I was fighting for people who were, I don't know what age that is. And also I'm really bad at history, so I can't tell you. But it was something like medieval times or something where there were lords and ladies, and they used to call themselves kings and queens. But by today's standards, they were more like lords and ladies because they were always fighting over plots of land that wasn't actually, those plots were not that big. And they were mostly kind of family related, and they were mostly fighting with family, like brother against brother, cousin against cousin. And they were always playing those kind of power games, who's going to get the land. And then they used to do a lot of kind of dirty fighting, because they would kind of blackmail each other, or show something bad about the other person so that they win. And then once this person won this land, of course, over battle, so you need to pay soldiers. For some soldiers, they followed because they believed in this person. But some soldiers were like me, they just go where they're paid to fight. And I personally didn't care about any of their whatever they were about their power politics, because I knew that I just really didn't care about it. I felt that it was just like a child's play or something. It was just power games, and they were really nasty. And I really didn't care, didn't care who won, but I did care who pays more. So, and who actually regularly actually pays. So I went to back that person. And I would switch between people too, because I was someone for hire. And I used to think that being a farmer, which was another option for life, you're like a sitting duck. Those very rich people, they were fighting with each other. And first, this land is mine, then this land is somebody else's, then this land is somebody else's. But in that process, who suffers is the people who actually just started to make a life there, maybe a few years of peace. They just started a life there. And then when there's a battle, things get destroyed. People get killed. And not 100%, but a lot of it gets completely destroyed. So I felt like, to be a farmer, it means like you're a sitting duck, because eventually someone's going to come like me, and they're going to kill them, or they're going to destroy something in the process of this takeover of the land. And I also thought that you either have to be a farmer or you have to be a fighter, because if you become a farmer, I would like, if I became a farmer, I would not practice fighting every single day. And I knew that to be a really good fighter, you need to practice every single day. It has to be in your hands. It's almost like autopilot. Your focus needs to be sharp. And I thought that if you spend even 1 week doing the farming, which will keep you strong, but it won't keep you a warrior anymore. So when the actual warriors come who do this every single day, or they practice every day, you have no chance against them, because it's their profession. Even if you have been a warrior, even if you're really good at it, if you don't practice, your skill kind of dies. So I thought, I can't be a sitting duck like that. So, and also there was a choice to fight with those kings and queens and lords and ladies. And I really did not like the idea of all those dirty power games, because they were always kind of trying to undermine each other or something like that. And they didn't really care about the land, honestly, or about the people, but they were always talking about how they care about the people. So then as I was about to die, I realized that my wife and son, they had nobody to turn to. I didn't build a community. They didn't have a community or anything like that. We just lived in the city, like alone, with a lot of money, but they would have none. So I was begging my soul to keep me alive, because I wanted to uh, go and change my ways. I wanted to create a farm, and I was about to change my mind. Even I'm going to go to become like a lord, or a lord's power game struggle. I was thinking, okay, fine, I'll get into that, which I hate, but I'll do it because next time I'm going to die, I want my wife and son to when they lose me, I want them to have a farm. I want them to have a community. I want them to have people who are still going to somehow be together, and they're not going to be alone. They're still going to have something to farm. And my soul, then I was back to being a baby. I was kind of jumping back between Olga and that person. And I remember that I was in this body, but I was also begging my soul, which I also felt here. I was begging my soul, I don't want to be in this girl's body. I want to go and be there because that's so important. And this is not. I was like, no, this is so important. I don't want to be this girl. I don't want to live here. I need to go back. I need that to be a near-death experience, which is enlightening and which, showed me the wrongs of my ways, and I want to correct them. And I was begging my soul from the body of Olga and from the body of the man. We were both begging our soul, please, we knew that it's possible that he could survive. And my soul said that if you can remember who I am, meaning we are, who you are, if you can remember who you are, who I am, then you can choose whatever you want. Then you can go and live as that warrior. It was like not a contract, but it was an agreement. If you can remember me, who I am, where we're coming from, then you can choose whatever you want. They didn't even say like what's gonna happen, but you can choose. And I was so close to remembering who I am. It's like, when you remember an actor's name, you almost remember an actor's name, and it's on the tip of your tongue, or the song's name, or something's name, and you're like, I know, it starts with a D or whatever. I know what it is. I know who I am. I know who I am. It was this close, this close. And I said, yes. I said, of course I can remember who I am. But the second part of the agreement was like, if you can remember who I am, you can choose. Okay. And if you choose to stay there, you choose to stay there. But if you don't remember who you are, / who I am, we are, you're going to be born in this girl's body to these parents over there in the kitchen cooking. And by living this life as Olga, and I remember they also particularly pointed to some darknesses that my parents were going to impart in me as I was growing. They were joking around, and they were fighting and arguing, and also they're alcoholics. And I felt the darkness that I came here to receive from these parents. Like I felt the string of it. I felt that it was going to come in me. And that's why I chose my parents, because I chose that darkness. Later on, I would call it like self-worth, feelings of unworthiness and all that comes with alcoholism and all that comes with all that stuff. So, but at that time, I didn't really know. I just felt the darkness. And my soul said that if you don't remember who you are, then you're going to be Olga, and you're going to receive this darkness from these parents. And throughout your life as Olga, you're going to heal and resolve this pain, huge pain, this heartbreak you're having as the warrior that's dying in the field. And I said, yeah, okay, but I know I'm going to remember. I understood that. I understood the truth that, yes, I understand. But also, I didn't want to choose that. I wanted to go back. So I was really, really, really trying hard as a baby in my bed, I remember. it was so weird to feel myself as an adult in a baby's body that I did not want to live in. And I kept asking myself, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And slowly and slowly and slowly, I was losing the connection to that thing over there. I, I kind of slowly realized I don't think I'll remember it. And that was so heartbreaking because slowly I was letting go of that man who was that I knew that because I agreed to this, he's dying. I'm dying because I can't remember who I am. He is slowly dying, and slowly my my soul is kind of going from that man to this body more permanently. And by the way, I've had lifetimes that are between this, so I don't know how this works exactly. It like all times are happening at the same time, but at that time I felt that this is going to be this is a permanent decision, that he's going to die and I'm going to live as Olga. And I cried myself to sleep as that baby because I realized that, you know, this man died, even though that happened like hundreds of years ago, but it happened like right now for my baby body. And then the next morning, I remembered everything bright as day. And today I remember it bright as day. And all my life, I remembered it bright as day, like as it happened right now. And even like as a kid, when I would like play with kids on the street, and I remember they would get really, sometimes really touched and sad that some, like we would have little fights with you know, kid fights. And I would always look at them and go like, why are you guys taking this so seriously? Don't you have your own serious stuff to deal with? Like, I know I came here to resolve this heartbreak of this man that I used to be, that I died, and I'm supposed to fix this here. And I don't know how. And because it's like this is a stage and that happened behind the scenes. But we're on stage now, we're not supposed to talk about it. But I assumed everybody remembered stuff like that. So I always looked at people like, why are you guys so touchy feeling about this not important stuff? We're supposed to all resolve our stuff right now. But I couldn't like get into life 100% as Olga because everything seemed to be just not important, because I remembered that thing, that mission. But this weird thing is, I don't know what to do. Like, how do I resolve it? I am just a kid. How do you resolve that? And I used to look in the mirror when I'm alone and nobody sees me. I used to pinch myself in the face, like even at school. And even when I was a teenager, and even up to my 20s, then I stopped doing that. But I used to kind of pinch my face and go like, who am I? I need to remember who I am, because whatever came into this body, the me, like I have work to do. And I'm here in this body, in this temporary body, but why, and who am I? And this has been the crazy question in my life, all my life, until, yeah, then I had the near-death experience at 16 that kind of took me back to like stop that I shared with you, kind of a help to get my life in order. But yeah, and then my life was scattered with teachings that I still didn't understand, but I'd like to share with you, because I want to share a kind of an experience of how somebody remembers a past life and how we can work through it now, because I'm 41 now, and I actually got to levels of who I am, and I understood why my soul said no to that man.
That's amazing that you could remember that at like 3. And I was
Yeah,
gonna ask you,
two. I don't know why it's two. I just know it's
oh,
two. I
2.
have no idea why.
Wow. Yeah. I know I had like childhood memories of like this spiral staircase, and me and my brother were playing on it. And down below, you can look over, you can see everybody down below there. And it was in this, I remember it just being like a brick house. And I don't know, I remember us getting yelled at because we were playing at the top of the stairs. And all of a sudden, the brother falls down through and hits the floor. And that's why we got in trouble. And then when I talked back to like when I asked my mother about it, she's like, that never happened. And I'm like, that must have been some kind of like past life situation or something like that, because how else would you explain it? Because like I knew there's this thing within me that knew. So it's really interesting, like past life remembering, and a lot of people do have them, but it's really interesting that you had that too.
Um, yes, I think we may probably maybe even disregard just how many experiences are actually spiritual experiences that we may kind of sign off as like regular experiences.
Mm, yeah.
I learned that later on, but not at that time.
Hmm.
Um, anyway, so
Well, the other thing that I kind of thought was interesting was because that was a very long time ago, and you're now having that in this time space of Olga. You said you don't really know how that kind of works, and you had different lives in between then.
yes, I have a picture that I was actually, it's kind of like about this. So this is something I drew recently. So sometimes I see lives like that. They're little stepping stones. So let's say this is a life, or it can also can be a life experience within a life. So this can be a whole life with your many experiences. You're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, 40. And like I said, like let's say I came from there, from maybe far, far away. Like that was my warrior life, and I'm here now. But also, I remember having so many more lives, which I remembered later because I learned shamanism with my teachers, and I did like very intense. It started about 7 years ago. Very, very intense healing work on myself, and in the process of that healing work, I started remembering many more lifetimes. That's how I can say that I had many more lifetimes. And they're really weird like that with time. It's not linear. So let's say the warrior lifetime was somewhere far away. And then I had other lifetimes that were kind of peripheral, um, a little bit later or a little bit earlier. And I find that time is very weird. Right, maybe it's getting too much detail into it, but I feel there's also times in between. Like there is a life, and then there's many, it's like one life, and then there's many tiny little options of this life. Okay, maybe that's getting too far. Like kind of like maybe like parallel realities, but they're all realities. Anyway, but this is like times of like I had other lifetimes, and then you can sit there and reflect on all the steps that you have taken and how you have changed in your karma and in your understanding of yourself. And this is also like an illustration of what I learned about. I keep using the word karma because I don't know any other word that I can use. And I learned that it's not really something like, I think a lot of people already moved away from the concept of that it being a crime and punishment system, or like a debit and credit system, payment and payback. But for me, it's been know yourself system. It's like the more I try to resolve a very painful thing in me, for example, from that time, the more as I resolve it, the more opens up to me that's way deeper than that. And that helps me understand more of myself. So for now, I define karma as a system that helps me know myself. And yeah, this is a kind of picture to help kind of put that into some kind of picture.
I
An
love
easy
that.
way to see.
I love that image. It helps a lot. And when Spirit was just when you were talking, Spirit was saying it's like your spirit or your soul. It's not like one life to the next life to the next life. Kind of like you're saying, it can go into different lifetimes in between, but there were other lives that your soul chose in between that one and this one to learn lessons so you can come back around to this experience and learn these lessons. So it's like you choose between different lives, not necessarily from this one to that one. So it's not like in any specific order. So say, okay, I'd rather work on this first and then get to that. So you go do a different life and then do that one and then come back to this one. So there might be something that you needed to attain or learn from the other life before you take on this one. So that's why you chose a different life in between instead of going from one to the other. That's how they just
Yes,
explained it to
yes,
me.
yes, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll show you that exactly happened. Yeah. Uh, so as I was working on the warrior, that pain of the warrior, because he was so upset that his wife is going to be a prostitute. Uh, so before that, I had to first work on things like forgiveness and guilt and shame and
Mm.
blame and a lot of stuff that, like right now, I can talk to you in 3 seconds. Oh, this does this happen? But actually, every little step took, well, years. Yeah. No, every little step took at least like one realization would take me into maybe 3 days of crying and shock and laying in bed and crying about it. Then it would be weeks of sitting in aftershock, realizing things. And after that would come the time of digestion of months where I would be digesting the experience. So now I can talk about it like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And you too, I guess. This happened, but actually it happened very slowly. So when after I did that much healing to even try to get to a certain place with that warrior guy, um, I like, as I mentioned, like sometimes life come up in the process of you healing. So I remember one of the lies that came up was like, okay, let's say the warrior life was here, but over here, I had I remembered a life as a prostitute. So and it was so beautiful actually because it taught me that a woman being a prostitute is not like is not what that warrior thought, because in my life that I remember, I was an orphan and I was growing up in a some kind of house where girls were raised by a mistress, and she was so strict and she was so crazy about like you have to wash this stairs 3 times a day or something to the very very clean. You can't leave any dust. You have to wash your clothes. You have to uh, put the ribbons this way. And every time she would mention something, I think on purpose for that life, she would say, well, if you don't keep your house clean like this, it's you're just as good as a whore or something like that. And then, oh, if you don't keep your ribbons like this, you're just as good as a woman of the, I don't know what to call that, but I don't want to use bad words either, but she was using it as a bad word. And she's like, well, you just as, the red light district woman, okay? And if you don't tie your ribbons properly, if you do them like that, you're just as good as those women there. And then for me, I thought, you know what? I think those women there know how to live and you don't, because I think they know something and they look like they're free and I think they have a life going on because they're not obsessed with not being that thing. So they just create their own ribbons and they don't have to clean all day and they don't have to wear perfectly starched clothes. And so I ran away from that place, and I remember I had a crazy life of a lot of empowerment where I just had control over my life. I had my own money, and I actually loved the performance of the trade because I was really good at it. And I really enjoyed it. And it's like I could allow myself life. And I know that not every life of the a woman who does this job is good like that, but mine was. And I think it was like that, and it had its own issues. I was also an alcoholic in that life, so I was so free, but and confident, but also I was a kind of an alcoholic in that life too. So there were pluses and minuses, but I feel like me having had that life, it's like it's like on this line of this karmic theme, whatever you call, what you're gonna call it, of that warrior, because when he was the worst thing in the life in his head is that his wife would become that. Well, I did become that, and guess what? I survived. And guess what? Not everything was good, not everything was bad, but it's not the worst thing in the world. So this life opened up to me, and then more lives opened up. Yeah.
Now I wonder, okay, because so now I'm kind of thinking, okay, so with our near-death experiences, we know that we have the life review. So having that had that gentleman die in after the battle, and he was worrying about his wife becoming a prostitute. I think that kind of all kind of fits into that, right? So would he had then seen his wife become a prostitute? Do you know if she actually did, or do you have any
I
idea?
I have been trying to do that a lot, and I haven't been able to see that I feel on purpose because I'm still not completely done with it. And also, a lot of the healing has been about allowing everybody have their own authority and their own free will, and or like recognizing that everybody has their free will. So I learned as Olga that, look, I mean the warrior, me, we, the warrior. um I learned that he had like very not good limits and boundaries. He was basically kind of overtaking the life of his wife and son as completely my responsibility, which sounds great and amazing and heroic, which I also had lives where I was the hero, like acting like a hero, where there is also like the karma of heroism. Um, but why are you taking their life as yours? It's like they're an extension of you, and you're assuming they have no freedom of will. By the way, she married you, and it was her free will. She knew that you can die every moment. She chose to be there with you, live in that place, not become a farmer's wife. She has a will too. She doesn't belong to you. She's not an extension of you, and she's not the face of you, because there was also something like, oh, people are like, whoever the people are, I guess that himself, if she becomes a prostitute or whatever, her life will be horrible, she will be in need. Well, it's bad face for me because it's my wife and it's my son, so people will say, oh, he couldn't take care of them, so I was also doing it not really completely for them, but I could finally see that it was for me. And later on, through a lot of healing work, I could see that why my soul said no to him, because he was heartbroken, not only because he couldn't fix it, but also at the injustice of, how come I realize I did something wrong? I want to fix it. I'm asking for something good, and I receive an answer that is no from this wonderful place that is my soul. Like, how is that possible? Does the soul not care that I am in so much pain? And Olga, used to ask myself that too, because I'm thinking we come here and we have a lot of suffering. We have a lot of suffering. And doesn't our soul care? And somewhere deep inside of me, I know that it does, but I want to see some kind of closer uphand, proof that it does. So I did get to sitting with my soul, and um I what I learned was if it said yes, and I would have, let's say, a village that was mine, and I would be the protector of the village, or maybe three villages, and I would be like the lord of the three villages. I could probably pull it off because I was still young and I was strong and I had contacts of many warriors. I could organize this. Um, and then there would be a time to die as well. So let's say I would organize three villages, and all of these people, I wouldn't I wouldn't see that they had a life of their own, I think. And I would see them as an extension, same as my wife and son. They're an extension of me. Like, this land is mine, and all these people are under my responsibility, and I will protect them, and I'm going to set up systems for protecting them after I die, maybe too. I actually saw this in the Akashic Records, a lesson about that too, how people go into that karma as well, into that direction, setting up things so that when you die, nobody can do anything. You need to kind of disempower people, which is becomes like an evil, like it's something that looks like very evil, even though you're doing it from, you think you're doing it from good intentions, and you do because you don't see what you're doing exactly. And so I would have had, let's say, three villages that were my own, and when I would die at that time, let's say at some point, these villages would be taken over by the next guy, and then I would be hurt, not to the same extent as feeling that pain for the wife and son, but I would be hurt that much more, like multiplied by hundreds of people. I would somehow take all of their pain and make it my pain, because I decided that their life somehow is my property, but in a heroic way. Like, you could say, oh, you're so evil, you think that they're your property. No, they're my, like, their livelihood is my responsibility. It seems like a nice and sacred thing to do even, but is it? And I think it's a very big lesson in free will, in limits and boundaries, in uh, seeing like even what is sacred, and power. Where is the, where do I have the power, or where's my jurisdiction of my life? Like, this is my jurisdiction, this is your jurisdiction, and we can have interactions, but to where do I say no, this, even though I am kind of responsible one for this village, but when do I still stay detached and see these people's freedom of will? I don't know, but my soul showed me that if you were going to, I were going to allow you to live, you would be hurt multiplied by hundreds of times. So then my soul said, do you see that I actually did care for you, for us? I have love, and I limited the pain and suffering. I did not let you explode the pain and suffering. So then I understood that, and that's how I learned to say that karma is a system for you to know yourself. Yeah, through healing,
Right.
through whatever. Oh, see, thunder. Know yourself and thunder.
The universe is agreeing.
Yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, karma, I know we call and talk about karma as being a negative punishment kind of thing, but it's actually not. It's for our, growth and evolution. And I can see how from that guy who was in, the war and going into being in the life of the prostitute, maybe because of the worry about his wife being left into that situation, they wanted to experience that for themselves. maybe because they did the life review and, so and so. And then just to have and gain that experience, so because a lot of times we do put ourselves in that place. And there's always the topic about like, we ask for something that we want in our lives. We ask for whether to be a stronger person or to have more love or to have this experience, but it's not given to us. We're put in situations that help us to create that and gain that for ourselves, right? Because we're co-creating. We're not necessarily just giving it to us freely, So yeah, I can understand how that kind of played out for you in that experience. So thank you
I,
for sharing that.
I like how you say, yeah, you were afraid of that and you became that, and that I remember that actually I had a system where I remembered 3 lives. Not, I remembered extra lives where uh I had the perspective of somebody, like it was a karmic theme of worthiness and abundance, or rather poverty, but abundance versus poverty. I had 3 perspectives on this theme, which is where this warrior man couldn't provide for his son, so he was so sad about that. And then also the son has free will, by the way, because I was given a memory that I agreed to become Olga in this family that would give me all this darkness, which was already partly part of me anyway. But I did have the freedom of will to choose to become a baby to these parents. So then I learned that I'm sorry, but even that son chose to be the son of these 2 parents, and that the father would die, and or could die. Eventually he would die, and eventually the same thing would happen, whether it's them, wife and son, or it's 3 villages plus wife and son. He had the free will. And I had this memory of a woman that couldn't provide for her children. She had 3 children, and the memory I have is I was about to die with my baby, and there were 2 more kids, and of poverty, of starvation, basically. And I also don't know if she really did die, but I remember I had memory of a scene where she was getting ready to die together, because they were kind of, that's it, losing energy. And then I also had a memory of a child that was born into a time of, also like time of unrest, and didn't have uh he he was the child who wasn't provided for. So I had the mother, father, and child, where they couldn't provide for the child, and the child wasn't provided for. So I had like this memory of 3 perspectives, which just also went like, know yourself, you were in all 3 positions, and who you're going to blame and who you're going to forgive. But of course, forgiveness does help a lot. But oh, yeah, there's a lot of questions that get answered when you have been all 3 and you have memories of that. And when
Mhm.
they come together and they're like, huh, like this guy is sitting here contemplating, oh, I've been this, and I've been that. And how does it all kind of combine together in this one life path? So yeah, what you were saying.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's important too to know that we do play different roles within that. Like we become the mother, the brother, the sister, the father, play these different roles from different perspectives, about certain situations. That is like maybe our karmic theme. And we do go into other lives too, as well. Kind of like you said, you were taking on even more stuff being born in Olga, right? From your parents, because it's kind of like stacked. You bring your past experiences and what you want to work on into a new person or new being, but yet from your parents, you inherit a lot more stuff that you want to work on. And it kind of becomes this soup, if you will. And it's like this helps us to gain the knowledge and wisdom that we're looking for.
Yeah, I remember I also have part of that stuff, but that's their darkness and my darkness. Like they're similar, but they're not the same. So in some way, I'm kind of reawakening my darkness that I already have. But in another way, like you said, it's their stuff. It's actually unique. and yeah, it's new stuff. So it's
Hmm.
like deepening, and the spiral goes on and much bigger, or whatever, smaller, whichever you think you're going,
Yeah,
whichever way you think you're going.
we never know. But tapping into the Akashic records just a little bit, do you see where you're headed after this life?
Oh, I often tell my guides I want to experience a life of peace and like being in nature. And then my guides say, "Don't hurry so much. How do you know you're not going to get it in this lifetime?" Um, yeah, I actually do want to share this crazy thing. With Recently I've been talking to the warrior again. I called him in because there was a bell kind of ringing in my ear, and it said, "I think you made the warrior guy a little bit of an evil guy that's just like a burden and in your life that you have to kind of not a burden, but like the troublemaker, the guy that, you have to heal and fix and then there was a bell that my guides like, we think you have a negative perspective of this guy, and they said, why don't you talk to him again?" And I called him in again, and he looked radiant, and his hair was shampooed and amazing. I don't think he had ever had that hair in his life, but oh, the hair was amazing, and he was smiling and really radiant, and he was kind of grinning in a way that you don't even know the half of it yet, kind of thing. You don't even know the half of it, but there was a lot of uh like peace coming out of him. The message of peace was just coming out of him. And then he invited me to sit at a round table, a round white table. And he kept playing with pebbles, which is like a game I used to play as a childhood it's a game. And he's like inviting me to play a game of pebbles at a round table. And when I accepted, non-physically, like in meditation, when I accepted, I saw my other incarnations join the table. Some of them I remembered and I knew their faces, and some of them they're blurry. I don't really know them. And some of them I saw their faces, but I also don't know them. And I was like, I don't know what game we're playing. I don't know the rules. But he's like, just throw the stones on the table. Okay. So I threw the stones on the table, and somehow the stones pointed to an incarnation right next to me. It was a lady. And the stones also said what she should show us, everyone. So I said, okay, please do. And she showed her a scene from her life where she was kind of like a person that has a house and a big garden, and basically the life that I'm asking for from my guides. And she had a life of leisure. It was the times of, I think it was like in the Russian, kind of after the feudalism times, when you have peasants and the peasants worked, and she was this the owner of the land. But she was a daughter of the owner. She had no responsibilities. She was just sitting around having very excruciatingly slow days. And she was watching the sky and the sun and the forest. And she was like, she was so bored. Like she was reading a lot of books about people who had adventures. And she kind of was really disappointed with her life because she thought she was imprisoned in this garden, and she hated it. She was wishing for adventure. She wanted things to happen, a lot of things to happen. And she saw emptiness in the trees and the sun and the sky and the garden. And I was laughing when I saw this, because for me now, I see spirit, and I can communicate with the tree for a week if you let me have enough peace to talk to the tree. Or I love to just sit and talk to the sun, and I love to just talk to the sky and just sit and feel and be. And I thought, wow, can we switch? Can I go into your life and you go into mine? Because I realized she manifested a crazy life of a lot of happenings, which is what I'm having now. So I said, can you please come here? And can I please go there? And then I was shown, no, that can't happen, because if you're there, you'd have to live by the kind of her brain, which saw nothing in the trees and nothing in the sun. She saw no consciousness anywhere. She just saw it as boring trees and boring grass and boring house and boring this and boring that. And so if I would come there as her, I would have to kind of play by those rules and I'd still be bored. So yeah, and then we kept playing that game with other people showing stuff. So yeah, we can do this kind of things. Yeah, I think my message is that we can, I think we've reached some kind of level of consciousness where more and more people can have these interactions with their past lifetimes and parts of themselves. We can do this.
Yeah,
And it's
definitely.
interesting.
Beautiful. Thank you. You also
Thank you.
had out of body experience and went to other realms. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, I'll share this. Yes. So I'm asking which one should I share? Okay. So this is there's one short, funny one. There's one deeper, meaningful one, but they're both meaningful. Uh, so when I was again a teenager, I was kind of taken out again. I was that happened a lot, like taken out and just being in some place that I always described as being more real than uh, reality. So, like, kind of behind the scenes if you're in a theater. And I remember now I know it was my guides who took me out. So I'll just say that my guides took me out, and it was a bedroom, a messy bedroom that I never lived. I don't remember it at all. And there was a mirror by the bed, and I was sitting on the bed, and my guides were outside the room, but they were peeping into the door. And they showed me who was sitting next to me on the bed. And next to me on the bed was somebody who was wearing like a priest kind of canvas bag, not canvas bag, canvas, the material that bags are made of, like canvas, like a canvas robe with that looks like a priest's robe. And he was sitting on the bed and he said, I'm the unborn child. And I thought, oh my God, you're the unborn child, you know, you weren't born, and it's so sad. And as I was feeling that for this child, and later on in my 30s, I uncovered that I used to be a midwife that used to assist with abortions when people asked me. So that was related to that. But as a teenager, I had no idea. I was just, you're the unborn child. And I was so sad about the unborn child. And I felt that he was sacred. And then I was just having this experience of, I'm so sorry. And, oh, you need to be revered so much. And then my guides would knock from the door, go like, hey, look in the mirror. And then I would look in the mirror, and here's me, and here's the unborn child in a priest thing. And the mirror showed me that I was an old, shriveling, almost mummy with no life energy in me, that I have given everything to the unborn child by being so sad for it and reverence. And my guides kind of explained that, yeah, by doing this, you gave away all your life energy to him. So they're like, it's your choice if you want to actually die and give everything away to this one. And I got scared. I'm like, no, 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 I'm not. Whatever, like I kind of sucked in back my energy as a sorry, unborn child. You know, you gotta have, you know, your own, it's your business. Not in those words, but and then they kept changing the situation. They showed me a celebrity that I was really, really fanatically in love with when I was a kid. And again, I did the same thing, a reverence. And then all my energy would go to that celebrity, and they would knock again, and they'd show me the mirror. You're doing the same thing again, and I'm the shriveled person. And then I would fight to get my energy back, and it was really hard because the celebrity looked at me like, you don't love me, you know? You don't care? And I don't know, it was a really hard battle. And then they would show me an actual priest, like a spiritual leader that's very, very smart. And I would be like, oh, like reverence again. Oh, you're amazing. And then my guides would knock again, just look at yourself. And it was a mummy again. And I had to pull back my energy from this thing that I was feeling reverence for. And then they showed me an old woman. And I felt like the old woman is so sacred. We all have to help this old woman. She's a grandmother, she's a mother, she's sacred. And I felt a reverence. And then again, my guides knocked and said, you gave away your energy again. And then I was fighting with this grandma, and she was the hardest because she looked at me like, really? I gave all my life to raising children and doing this and doing that. And now I'm old and frail, and you're not gonna help me, you know? And I was, no, 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 of course I will help you. And then again, all my energy went to her, and she's becoming healthier. And we had this fight for a long time. It was the hardest fight ever. And at the teenage time, I didn't understand why I had it. I just thought, whoa, that's a cool, crazy thing. But little did I know that in my life I'd have this. Like I did have that craziness for the celebrities, and I had to let it go because somehow it's actually giving your energy away. I did go when I was just discovering how to use my spiritual perception situation, gifts, and abilities. I ended up going to a kind of a religious cult because uh, I think maybe many people kind of end up going to a guru that says, I know everything and I know all the solutions. And then there's this reverence. And I spent 11 years in that group. And and then I made my own choice. I was having this battle, but I didn't know it at the time. I made my own choice to pull back my energy from that and go live my own life. And it is just like that stuff kept repeating. And I have an artwork for this too. I think it's not only me, actually. It's not completed yet. It needs some touch-ups. But the image of this man in his prime, he is connected by these golden chains to all these columns in the temple in the sky with no foundation, by the way. Uh, he, for example, he thinks that this spiritual leader or guru is sacred, and he will give his time and energy to like worship this person, for example. Or he may think that I'm sorry to say this, it probably sounds very terrible, but we we consider, for example, children as sacred. So we tie ourselves to them, and sometimes we grow up kind of with perception, or maybe our parents tell us, I sacrificed my life for you. So like a person can be thinking too that I have to sacrifice my life to you because you're sacred. You're a child, you're sacred. I have to give my life to you because you're sacred. And then there's the old parents, for example. Parents are sacred. I have to give my life to you. And so there's other stuff. There's maybe some belief systems, some philosophies. I like to call it though, like the philosopher's stone or the holy grail, that you think this philosophy is the answer to everything. And sometimes we find it and we give our life to it, and we have, or we are, maybe we have a job that's very respectable and we think it's a sacred job. I have to give my life to it. And then we create all these chains. And this man is in prime of his life. I've seen myself there. This is me. This man is in prime of his life, and he has muscles and he has so much energy, and yet he's not doing anything. He's sitting and wasting away because he's has created a temple around himself that is his prison. And by the time the child grows up and his parents pass away, and his guru moved on and on other things and whatever else. Maybe he changed his perception about his beliefs or whatever. He is then an old man that has given away, sacrificed his life to everybody or everything. And by the time he's older, he may be thinking, I am sacred now, or who's going to give me something? And I think we create a kind of really debt system in a non-physical, a spiritual debt system, where we believe we're owed stuff by the universe, like a government, like the universal bank of spirit or something like that. And I feel this is a big karmic theme I have been learning about, and letting go of that, letting go of I owe you because you're sacred, or I owe you, or you owe me. And plus, there's interest involved, um, with the things I've given you and the things someone gave me. And now we have to give back, but multiply by 5 times. Like my husband, I caught my husband saying that if I need to give, my mom 5 lifetimes of mine, and that won't be enough for what she did for me. So if we believe that, I feel we are creating a debt system. Um, why does it mean that I owe you 5 lifetimes? Because you've given me one. Where is her freedom of will? Why is she not even considered as having a free will and her own kind of choices? How come you have to, like, times 5%, like, what is it, 500% interest rate on what she has given you? And like, I feel it so much corresponds to actual physical debt that we all as collective humanity are creating. A lot of us are living on debt, and a collective debt, like more and more and more. And we're like, how do we stop this? This is growing out of control. But there is a spiritual debt that we keep creating. If we feel that we're owed something, or if we feel that we owe something to someone sacred or someone we revere, I think if we work on this, we ask questions and we kind of release, because the debt and the credit, they don't cancel each other. They just multiply each other within. Like, I feel someone owes me and also I owe them. So the collective debt is being raised. And as long as we think like that within, we're going to have physical manifestations of ever growing debt. So how can we kind of stop thinking like that? And I guess, like, our time is up now, so I don't have a solution. I feel like anyway, I think everybody can find their own. So I have a solution of a proposed solution, but actually I won't share it because I feel like we all have our own paths to figuring this out for ourselves. How can we release this collective spiritual, non-physical debt so that we can stop creating the physical one? Does that make any sense, or do I sound like a lunatic right now?
No, you're making 100% sense. And I've seen some of those in my life too. I grew up in an environment where, like, the mother was like, be grateful, and go, yes, I want to learn to be grateful, but I don't want to do it as a debt. Right. So it was like this oh me thing. And she was like that with everybody. She's like, well, people need to call me, and, people need to do this for me. And it's like she felt owed by the universe for whatever reason. Um, I also seen it play out in my life, and I did my best to change that because I didn't want to repeat the patterns, and which is another great topic. We're ingrained by our environment, and we repeat, what we're brought up in, but we become aware in order to change that. But yeah, I've kind of seen those patterns as well, and it's just great, I think, to just become aware of it, what you're doing. And then one of my things with spirit, they were teaching me along these lines is, even if it's a pen, if it's not your pen, put it back, because that's a sense of having energy put out there that's not yours, right? So it's like it's not really stealing, but it kind of stealing if you want to look at it that way. But you're actually creating, like, you're giving your energy out there, right? And so I went through this process, like, if I'm using something, I put it back. If I'm doing this, I put it back. So I'm very aware and conscious of what I'm trying to do, where I'm putting my energy to. And I went through the whole thing about Buddhism, religions, going through all the spiritual teachers, following them, Sadhguru for a while. It was like one thing to another. And though I got a lot of knowledge and wisdom from them, there was a time where it's like, okay, stop following them. And I think it's important to not put our energy out there because we become drained. It's very apparent. Because then what's left for us? Like, we have the knowledge within. All we have to do is tap into it. Like, we shouldn't be expending it on other people because we don't know, or we feel like we don't know, and they do, and they're higher than us.
Yeah, or we may think they're powerless and we want to help them in their struggle. But as we're doing this, we're kind of creating a situation where we're like, yes, indeed, you are powerless, but that's not true. And we're creating more powerlessness in our life and their life. And that, again, like the energy flow goes into there. But also, I feel like it's going to some kind of dark bucket that creates more debt in the future that you have to figure out. So just like embrace the fact that this person has power to choose life if they want to, and live life right now without debt or being owed something or borrowing something from someone. No, just choose life for yourself. Like this man, just choose to stand up and live. That's it. Don't choose to sit here in a prison. But we create these really hard prisons that it's very hard to get out of physically. And I feel like my next stage of my life is actually learning how to stop creating these prisons on kind of very, very deep level. Just no kind of debt or credit. Just right now, let's choose life. And I feel like that can cut cords, and perhaps that can help stop creating this huge debt all over the place. I hope so.
That's a beautiful message. So thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else? Because we are going to come to a close here. Anything else you would like to share?
No, I think we've shared. I think the conversation went beautifully and organically, and I'm very grateful for all the things you shared and your questions. It was a beautiful experience of exchange
Thank
with no
you.
debt. With no
Yeah,
debt.
and I feel the same. So thank you so much. Hopefully, we'll be able to have you back on at some point and talk about some more topics because I love your insight and the things that you talk. I think they're very, really important to get out there. And I love your art. So it's a great, dictation of what you're talking about.
Thank you. I feel very safe sharing this. I've never shared this collective debt story ever in my life, and some of the other stuff. I've never shared it online. So, thank you for creating a safe space.
Oh, you're welcome.